Hey everybody and welcome back to yet another episode of Imagine If, a show basically dedicated to share my ideas on some of the games I play, and today, once again, we're gonna be discussing Fortnite Battle Royale, and today's episode topic is going to be the addition of melee weapons and energy weapons. So if you guys do any sort of research online, and you look up, what do people think about melee weapons in Fortnite? You find a lot of forum threads basically discussing how the pickaxe is useless. It doesn't do enough damage. I mean, you've got this massive battle axe which seems like can cut a person in half, but it does 10 damage per hit. I mean, what the hell? What the hell is that meant to be? So I decided, how about we actually talk about adding some of the weapons that they already have in Save the World over across to Fortnite Battle Royale. I mean, it does make sense for them to import some of the weapons over to the Battle Royale mode simply because they have all the animations, all the models, and everything ready to go in their Save the World. So it would be kind of easy for them to do that. All they have to do is just look at the stats to balance them accordingly. So how about we begin with why I don't think it's the best idea to add melee weapons to Fortnite Battle Royale. I mean, my first thing that comes to mind is kind of oversaturation of all the weapons. It kind of happened with DayZ, where they added so many pointless weapons that didn't do any sort of damage or didn't have any kind of gameplay impact, where quite often you're finding weapons and you just weren't satisfied with them. You didn't want them, you didn't use them, you sometimes didn't even pick them up. So I feel like the same thing could potentially happen with melee weapons in Fortnite if they're not done correctly. If they don't have any sort of competitive edge, for example, over using shotguns in close quarters, I don't think they're gonna be rendered as very useful choices for players. I mean, the worst thing that could happen if they added melee weapons to Fortnite, if the players would still choose, for example, the pump shotgun or the tactical shotgun over an energy sword, or like some sort of a massive hammer or a cleaver, something along those lines. I mean, if that were to happen, then I think the weapons would be a complete failure, so it would be kind of hard to balance those things out, which kind of brings me to the next point. In order to make these weapons competitive, you would have to make them a little bit overpowered. For example, it would have to be a 2-hit kill if the person is not wearing a shield, and if they do have a shield on them, a full shield, it will be a 3-hit kill. So I mean, in close quarters situation, you could easily get a jump on somebody with some sort of a power weapon and quickly outperform them if they're using any sort of other weapons. But to kind of summarize, I feel like all the negatives with the introduction of power weapons would simply be down to the balancing, down to the stats, because if they're made too overpowered, I feel like the community could have like a massive fit. It will be a huge backlash all over the place. Let's be honest, Reddit would be fuming. But if they're underpowered, then the community is just not gonna use them whatsoever, which is exactly the opposite effect that I want those weapons to have. But how about we now talking about the positives that the weapons would introduce to the Battle Royale experience? I mean, first of all, we do have to talk about that they already have all of those weapons in Save the World. They're animated, there's a huge variety of them, they look awesome, they look original, some of them are extremely badass, so it would be kind of easy for them to just be like, hey, see all those weapons that we worked really hard on, and see how like majority of our players play Battle Royale? How about we just introduce those weapons to Battle Royale? Free content and easy content, and the community is gonna love us. Hey, that sounds perfect to me. At some point down the road, we will actually see a massive content drop, which is going to introduce a bunch of melee weapons from Save the World. Also, for example, early game of Fortnite would be a lot more interesting if, for example, you drop for one of the big cities and you find yourself some sort of an amazing energy sword or some sort of like an overpowered melee weapon, and you can just chase down everybody that is just running around with a pickaxe trying to pick up any sort of weapon. They pick up like a useless pistol and you just get a jump on them and just smash them to pieces. Imagine also destroying structures with some of these melee weapons. If they manage to bring down walls with, for example, one hit where you slam through a wall, you rush through and kill everybody inside the building. I feel like that would be very interesting. It would make for some really interesting scenarios in early game of Fortnite Battle Royale. Also, looking at a working example of something like that, all we have to do is look at Halo. I mean, Halo, sure, it has a lot of close quarters maps, but also a lot of the Halo maps are very open, and those power weapons do work very well. Sometimes they spawn in the middle of open fields. You have to go get them, grab them, but then as soon as you run into a building, you have a massive advantage over somebody that doesn't have one of those melee weapons. So I think the same thing could happen to Fortnite Battle Royale. So any sort of early game and late game would be very interesting when all of the players are forced into like a small area and a lot of them just have melee weapons and they just go ham at each other. I think that would be very interesting to keep the game, you know, alive for longer. And another positive thing, obviously, it would open up the doors yet again for some very interesting game modes. I mean, imagine 50 versus 50, where two teams spawn on opposite sides of the map, and all the zone is doing is coming in from both sides, closing them in into the center. Just imagine for some of the epic battles you would be able to have with melee weapons only. For example, it would be in your best interest to get to the middle of the map, quickly build up some sort of a massive castle, some sort of a massive base, and then the other team is trying to assault it. Imagine if they then turned up the spawn rates of the launch pad, so in order to assault the walls of the castle, you would use the jump pads to then parachute down and then have a massive melee brawl. I think that would be absolutely incredible. It probably would be my favorite game mode of all time, because I mean 50 versus 50 when it was running, it was my favorite game mode, but thinking about having it as melee weapons only would make it so much more interesting. You'll be able to set traps, you would be able to, like I said, use jump pads to infiltrate enemy bases. I think it would be just a fun game mode all around, and I don't think it would be too difficult to make as well. So I think overall, I think melee weapons would be a really good addition to Fortnite Battle Royale. I don't see many disadvantages to them. As I said, it all kind of comes down to balancing, because I don't think anything would be necessarily game breaking by introducing some of these melee weapons, and it would be an easy job for the developers as well to just simply port over the existing assets that they have from Save the World over to the Battle Royale game mode. I mean, they've done that with weapons and other abilities in the past, so what's stopping them with adding melee weapons? I wouldn't be surprised if sometime down the road we actually do see a massive content drop which is going to introduce all of these all at once. I think it will be kind of amazing, and if that happens, I've told you about it here first. So make sure to subscribe to this channel for all the latest and greatest news on Fortnite. Years in advance. I predict everything. My success rate right now is 100% because nothing has been debunked just yet. But anyway, guys, I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. Let me know in the comments down below if you think melee weapons are going to be a good addition to Fortnite Battle Royale, or maybe you disagree with me. Then let me know in the comments down below. And as always, before we begin the next episode, I'm going to pick some of my favorite comments of some suggestions that you guys would like to see added to Fortnite Battle Royale. So leave those comments down in the comment section. And as always, if you enjoyed this, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel for plenty more Fortnite content, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care and goodbye. Bye 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 bye.